Yes, I'd like to call us to order. Sorry, I have the agenda in front of me. And if we could do a roll call, please.
Certainly. Commissioner Lopez?
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Oglesby?
Here.
Chair Leffel?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Sorry, my news just popped up that a Joby plane crashed in South Monterey County. That is bad news for us.
Oh,
Yeah, that was off of Halone. That happened Wednesday.
Oh, shit.
oh, I'm sorry.
But nobody injured, just bad press.
Yes. Yeah. Well, it is what it is when you're doing pilot training, right? We have open for public comment for any item that is not on the agenda, and please limit yourself to 3 minutes. Do we have any public on the call?
No public and no public comment.
Okay, I will close public comment. New special business is consider selection of the Budget and Finance Committee Chair for the calendar year of 2022. So I am open for nominations.
I'm good to keep it with Mary Ann Leffel personally.
I will, well, let me motion. I nominate that the chair and vice chair continue to serve in their current positions.
I'll second that.
That makes it easy. Any discussion? All in favor? Oh, we need to do a roll call because we're on Zoom.
We do. Thank you. Commissioner Oglesby?
Aye.
Commissioner Lopez?
Aye.
And Commissioner Leffel?
Yes.
Thank you.
And I think, I think that we're doing a good job for the commission on this, that we're reading the packages and paying attention. So, and we work well with staff and Mr. Briley. So we will continue to do the best that we can. New business, receive the amended bank warrant register for December 2021. And thank you for changing that. And I didn't mean to blindside you. It was just, I saw it and I was like, what is this? So.
Oh, you're welcome. Good morning, commissioners. Yes, item 2 is an amended warrant register that simply provides a bit more detail on a line item. So it's for your information only. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm gonna take my, sorry. I keep flipping through my binder and losing my agenda. I'll be right with you all. And that's what happens when you go on vacation. Consider the draft financial statements for period ending December 31st. Is that Mr. Briley?
Yes. Mike's here to help me present this item and a couple of others. The balance or the financial statements for the mid-year period are available as agenda item number 3. And overall, our commission's finances are in a very strong position. We do have an update for you regarding the accounts receivable that are listed on page 6 of the statements. That page 6 indicates that about half a dozen of our local agencies have yet to provide their annual contributions to LAFCO. However, we have been in close touch with all of them, and including the city of Salinas, and we have commitments that those contributions will be received in a timely fashion in the next month or so.
Okay, so hopefully by the end of March.
Yes, that's our goal. And the biggest of those are from the city of Salinas, and they have promised to expedite a check to LAFCO. So, so we're fine on that front. Mike, is there anything else that you would like to highlight?
Yeah, I just a couple things here. I'm sure everyone is aware of it, but I'm on the, well, first of all, on the asset side, Kate, I think you addressed the biggest line item there that needed attention, so I won't go into that anymore. The cash is solid, right in line with where our balances were at this point last year. But on the liability side, current liabilities down below account 2381, the dissolution of the FORA admin liability. I think it's good to be an update on that. So if you recall, LAFCO received $100,000 from FORA to cover administrative costs associated with the dissolution of FORA. So the $58,910 is the amount remaining on that. So the difference has been spent. So Kate, I don't know if you want to add anything to that, but I just thought it'd be good to bring that up to the committee.
Yes, thank you, Mike. There are a couple of remaining tasks to be done before we can bring a dissolution resolution back to the commission. Most important of those is that the County of Monterey is conducting a final audit of the FORA accounts, and that work is underway. Might be done very soon, I'm not sure, but it's definitely in progress. So once that administrative task is done, then we'll be very close to closing out our administrative tasks. I'm sure by the end of this year, we'll be able to do that. And then there is also a companion fund that we had received from FORA for any litigation. And we're happy to advise that we don't anticipate any new litigation on that front. We are a side party to existing litigation pertaining to the city of Delray Oaks in the California Native Plant Society, but discussions are underway there to resolve that, and we are monitoring that, but not very active in that matter. So again, hopefully this year that one litigation item will be resolved, and that next year, 2023, will be in a position to return the unspent administrative and litigation funds back to the local jurisdictions.
Yeah, just to quantify that point. So there's two accounts on the balance sheet to note. Up on the asset side, account 1020, restricted cash for FORA litigation, $345,779. So that money's set aside there for any potential future litigation. And then down below in the liability section, account 2380 is the corresponding accrued liability. It's really just a reserve because, as Kate said, we're not in a position at this point to anticipate that, but we do have those numbers reflected in the financial statements. So I think it's just good to be reminded of that. So.
Kate, I have a question for you, talking about unfunded liabilities. The the pensions that are still accruing because of CalPERS at FORA, how does the county deal with that, and how do we deal with it in closing out FORA financially?
Jonathan, you might be able to provide more detail on that, please.
Yes, so when FORA, the year before they went away, CalPERS did an actuarial, and then it was actually a few months after their dissolution in June 2020 that CalPERS finalized that actuarial final payoff for CalPERS. And so that was funded through funds that was transferred to County of Monterey, and also part of the approximately $30 million in building removal bonds. I think about $4 million of that amount went to pay off the CalPERS liability. And so the county made the portion of that payment, think it was around 2 million. City Marina, who was administrator of the $30 million building removal bond, paid the 4 million. And so that has been completely met at this point.
Okay, I guess I'm not, because it did, unfortunately, I sit on too many of these public boards. When you bring it and you pay it off based on what the actuarial is, if they have some bad years, it still can continue to accrue. So how did they set it aside for, I'm gonna say, people like you who are, you know, young and have a long life ahead of you? How do they set that aside enough for you that there's enough money? I guess I'm just not totally understanding how it's going to be where they're totally, the four funds are totally out of the woods, I guess, on liability for pension.
Commissioner, in general, I'll let you know that before we bring this back to our commission, we'll make sure that of being able to answer that question if there is some continuing liability. That our understanding is that liability has been fully met and that it was a one-time payment and it's done.
Okay.
But we'll verify all of that information for you when we come back in a few months with the dissolution resolution.
Okay, I appreciate it.
Okay.
At the airport, we bonded it twice and it's still, because of the state's ineptness in managing money, it still comes back and starts growing again. So it's a mess.
Mhm.
Okay, can't answer it today, but it is a concern for me as we watch all of this unfold of how we finally put Fora to bed. And I would love to put Fora to bed so we don't have to have it anywhere around. And thank you. And I hope we don't have to use the liability money set aside for any more lawsuits. Anybody else, Ian or Chris?
Yeah, I'll just comment. I do that part of the bonding proceeds, first thing we had to do is pay off the liability. So at that point in time, they said, Ford, that's all you needed to pay, that roughly $6 million. So I expect Marina to confirm what Kate was saying with some type of documentation that Ford is no longer responsible and it's paid off. But that's what they made us, Marion, they made us pay the liabilities off the top of the bonding proceeds. Then we got our money for building removal. So good question. I think they have the answer. So thank you. I mean,
Okay.
I think they'll be able to find the answer. So thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, no additional questions for me. I'll just say I agree with that question. I just would caution Mary Ann, who has a logical brain, to not expect the state to have a logical answer in terms of we paid it now, what with ongoing. Well, it's just there's a lot of assumptions that get made in the process, in my experience, with not necessarily dissolution, but other conversations with statewide agencies about winding things down. And so I just don't know that the answer will be perfect, and caution and try to set appropriate expectations.
In the perfect world of accounting, Mike, it's not a CalPERS. Number 4, consider the profit and loss budget versus the actual report dated February 2nd.
Yes, thank you. We receive these reports every 2 weeks from Mike's firm. And in general, the expenses and income are where we would expect to be at this time of year. We do have higher than budgeted expenses in some line items relating to professional services, postage and shipping, legal notices, even legal services. And those are almost directly due to two factors. One is some complex application processing work that we've needed to do this year, primarily with the Water Management District. And also we've had about 4 extra special meetings of the commission to handle the workload. So our costs have been higher in those line item expenses that help us meet our obligations. However, on the plus side, we've received a lot of project fees primarily from the Water Management District and also from other applicants in the LAFCO system. And those expenses offset almost all of the legal and professional service type expenses, as well as legal notice expenses incurred by the commission. Mike, is there anything that you'd like to add?
No, Kate, it's a pretty straightforward statement. You covered the key things, but happy to answer any questions.
I had no questions on this. Ian, any questions?
No questions.
Chris?
No questions.
Okay, thank you. Item number 5 is consider the preliminary draft annual work program for fiscal year 2022-2023.
Thank you. We have proposed as agenda item number 5, annual work program for the commission. This work program would take effect starting July 1st. It represents a continuation of the functions that we're performing now relating to application processing, studies of municipal services and boundaries, our work, general work with government and community relation, our support to the commission and its budget and finance committee, our work, just normal administrative and HR functions, and also financial management. So the volume of activity that we expect in the coming year is high, and we anticipate that our current staffing level of 4 full-time positions is sufficient to address those needs and responsibilities for the commission. So I'd be happy to answer any questions regarding any of these items.
Gentlemen, questions?
I just want to, no, go ahead. Go ahead, Supervisor.
No, I was just thank you, Ian. I was just wondering about the staff level, given the level of work over the last year. Are we anticipating a slowdown? We no longer have 4. Hopefully we'll be done soon with at least the ground level staff work around the latent powers issue. And so I'm just curious, looking at the 4, are we sure that's enough? Or do we want to budget in a little extra just to be safe?
Thank you for that question. I think that we're safe. I did budget in room here, or in the next item, our budget. I did anticipate a little bit extra costs for outside professional services, about $25,000. And what's on my mind is that I think it would be very helpful for our commission to have an economist, a financial analyst on board as needed to help us review some very significant sphere of influence and annexation changes that are coming before the commission this year, mostly from cities in the Salinas Valley. There's LAFCO has responsibilities to ensure that those projects make financial sense, and it would be helpful if we can get some expertise to help advise us on that. So I budgeted or proposed budget there about $25,000 for that purpose. So So I think with those professional kinds of outside assistance, that we're going to be solid in our capability to deliver to you.
All right, that satisfies me. I know that items are sort of tight, so I appreciate the crossover there. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
And that's what I was going to get to too. I was looking at the sphere influence for Soledad Gonzalez, and we know we need to talk about the issues surrounding Marina and what's going on there with the landfill. But also, Salinas has a general fund. A general plan they want to update. I know we're trying to finish in ours, and the question begs the answer is, do we have enough? And I just heard what you said. If you feel comfortable with that, then we'll see. But I just know we need to finish a lot of this stuff. These communities are anxious to get the answers from where LAFCO stands, and I don't think we should delay in our response. And I would just say that yes, we have a responsibility to make sure these things these spheres of influence as they grow are financially feasible. But that's not the only criteria. That's an important criteria, but it's a balance as we talk about latent powers and everything else. So I look forward to the coming year. So thank you.
Thank you. We've got a wonderful, wonderful, experienced team here. And so I am confident that we'll be able to continue to deliver high quality work in a timely fashion for our communities and for the commission.
Kate, how much further are we financially obligated on the fire study? Because I know that he finished it, and I guess now we're paying for him to go around and work with different municipalities or fire services. Because I know he's still on our payroll.
Yes, you're referring to Chief Mike McMurray, and
Correct.
he was a huge help to us in preparing the fire services study that was completed now almost 2 years ago. Hard to believe. The biggest outcome of that study was an effort by LAFCO to work with the County of Monterey over the last year. The county supervisors formed an ad hoc committee to look at primarily rural fire service and EMS service issues and possibilities for change. So we paid LAFCO paid for Mike Murray's services to the committee's work has come to action as of this past November or December. Part of that work had been to investigate the possibility of consolidation between North Monterey County and Monterey County Regional Fire. And there was a lot of work done, preliminary work done to look at the financial feasibility of that. The outcome is that it would have required a lot of financial resources from the County of Monterey or from the voters of Monterey County. And so at this point, Mike's work in supporting the ad hoc committee is complete, and we're prepared to let that contract drop.
Okay.
At this
I
point,
just wondered.
we're not
And
seeing
also, I
the need
guess-
right now.
A process question then for me is, what's our obligation when we do the studies? I guess then we have an obligation to go ahead and keep hiring somebody that they do the work afterwards to try to put the outcome of the study into play?
That was the case in working with. We have some very historic financial structural issues here in this county, and we were trying to get to the bottom of that to help the county take a very large look at how fire service delivery is provided here. So that work is complete, and that was new work that needed to be done, and it wasn't for any one particular district. It was for the benefit really of most of or all of the county. So other recommendations in the study are ones that can be implemented by the individual cities or districts, and that don't require LAFCO's initiative to pay for them. That being said, if Mike has helped, for instance, with our analysis of Paraiso Hot Springs development down in south outside of Soledad, trying to help resolve some issues there. So his expertise is helpful on an as-needed basis, but at the moment, we think we could let his contract drop and then pick it up again if we needed it in the future, as we're reviewing city growth proposals or other district changes. So that's where having the flexibility, where if I have the flexibility to hire these consultants, and he's very reasonable. He did a whole lot of work for us over 2 years, and I don't think it cost more than $25,000 total. So
I think
so-
this goes in line with what Ian and Chris were asking earlier was, do you have adequate staff to handle what looks like a volume of work that's about to come in the door? So I think you're answering that in part, in that you will find appropriate people in appropriate fields to assist with their professional skills and knowledge on some of the items. Is that what I'm hearing?
yes, that is, and you put it very nicely. In addition to what we're proposing in the budget, which is to continue current funding for outside professional services, to add a new $25,000 line item to give me some flexibility to hire, for instance, an economic consultant. We do also have encumbered funds that are available for outside professional services. And that's where we've been pulling the funds for Mike McMurray's services, fire service. So, so I think our budget is in a really good place to provide for that flexibility on an as-needed basis.
Okay. So just to make sure I understand, so I think that further answers the question earlier, but just so I understand the answer to my question, when we finish a study, we're really not done with it until we go out and, I'm going to use, this is my word, shop it and try to get some buy-in on it and see if we can get people to actually implement some of the ideas that came out of it or suggestions. And then if they won't, we're done, because we have no ability to force them to do what we think would have been good behavior. So if they can't get there, they can't get there, but we did the best we could. Is that kind of the long and short of it?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Got it. Any other questions on that?
No, I would just say, I think I appreciate you clarifying that. Because I don't think I knew we couldn't make them do it, Marianne, but for us to say, hey, we need to have this study, you guys chime in on what you would like to see, and then we'll come down somewhere in the middle, the best configuration and all of this stuff. But of course, we can't make them do it. But then at a certain point, they're going to come back to us and ask us for other issues, and so I just thought that was a good question. So thank you. And thank you for the complete answer, Kate, about the the fire study, because I was concerned with that and the length of time. But it goes back to what we talked about before, these spirit influences. We just need to make sure we're on top of it. And you answered it. You guys have excellent people. I know that. So again, I guess the rest of us just looking forward to those discussions, and they're coming. So thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have an idea of when these are coming? Since I think at least one of them's been on the work plan, I think since I know since I came on the commission, maybe both of them.
Yes, the City of Soledad application has actually been in our office for, is it 2 years? 2 years in an incomplete state for many reasons. And so we met last summer with the city's team, and we've been meeting through the fall, and we're actively meeting even this month with the city, the developer, various stakeholders to help resolve some of the outstanding issues. We'd love to move it forward. So we're initiating as many meetings as we can to figure things out and work them through. So I'm hopeful by this summer, the City of Soledad will be ready to go forward to a public hearing with the commission. The City of Gonzales has a very large annexation proposal that they're still working on. It's not actually officially in our door, but we've been working with them behind the scenes on some of the issues there, and coordinating also with the County of Monterey on both of those. And then, yes, Commissioner Oglesby, you talked about the City of Salinas just starting a comprehensive general plan update, and our staff we are attending those community meetings, and we'll be participating in all of the formal and informal opportunities to provide input and share our thoughts with the city as their ideas move forward. We also have in mind in this work program as a focus the city of Marina. They have a lot of growth occurring. They're looking at different options for fire services. And there's also some related issues pertaining to the regional landfill facility, and even some issues pertaining to East Garrison, all of which affect the city of Marina. So our intention in this coming fiscal year is to really be able to take time to sit down and begin to talk with City of Marina and other stakeholders about some of those issues and ideas. So those are a snapshot of some of the key priorities that we see in the coming year. There's also a few on former Fort Ord relating to Marina Coast Water District and City of Seaside to help with all the economic development and housing projects that are being considered right now. So those are also priorities for us.
And for me, all of them for me, but that's why I was talking about we need to just make room, because we're all trying to build, create housing, of course, and economic development. And I think it's just going to get a little bit more
Intense.
What?
It's going to get more intense.
Yeah, more intense, because as you guys know, the state is pushing to build these affordable housing units. I mean, just period, point blank. A lot of us are going to have to establish that we are creating housing, and some of us only have available land on the former Fort.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, thank you.
Thank you. We are participating in the AMBEG Regional Housing Needs Assessment allocation process, just so you know. So we're well aware that has an influence on our activities, and our policies have an influence on those local decisions that will come out of that regional process. So very challenging, very interesting year ahead.
Chris, did you have anything else to add on this item 5?
No, I'll just say I know on the Soledad application, we recently approved the tax sharing agreement at the county level. There was questions brought up at that point about whether or not it was time to revisit it, since it's been 40 years since that template was created. And so there was some pushback to try to get it put off, but the majority of city leadership requested that we proceed. And so we did proceed with a split vote, but it did get through. And the city of Soledad also approved it, I want to say 2 nights ago at their city council meeting. So that, I think that was one of the major missing pieces in their application. So I do see them making progress.
Yes, that's correct. Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner, for that update.
Of course. So yeah, I know that those pieces will come sooner rather than later, but I don't know that there's a role for LAFCO, but as we do work on looking at that agreement, there may be a role for in the conversation for LAFCO to play as we talk between the cities and the county. And obviously at the end, LAFCO has to usually sign off on that agreement saying that it meets the standards. And so at some point, I think it'll be good for us to be at that table. I just don't know if that'll be in a month or 6 months, but hopefully in this calendar year, we will be able to start that process in a way that will get us completed in the anticipated timeline, which is 1 year to 18 months.
Terrific. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so item 5 was an item that we need a recommendation on for full commission approval. So do I have a motion for approval?
Lopez moves.
Oglesby second.
Okay, all in favor, roll call?
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Commissioner Lopez,
Aye.
Commissioner Oglesby,
Aye.
and Commissioner Leffel.
Yes, thank you. Okay, item number 6, consider the preliminary draft budget, annual budget for fiscal year 2022, 2023.
Right. Thank you. This is agenda item number 6, and it contains a proposed budget. We are recommending that our committee here support this and refer it to the full commission for a series of public hearings in March and April. For the last couple of years, we have operated with a reduced COVID budget. Budget and Finance Committee Chair Leffel and I worked together about 2 years ago now to change our budget assumptions and make it easier for our local agencies to contribute to LAFCO's expenses. And we're recommending right now that there be that this not be a COVID impact budget, and that we return to more of our conventional practices. The assumptions are that we would return to modest increases in expenditures for salaries, services, and supplies to include cost of living adjustment, which there hasn't been in 2 or 3 years. It also anticipates a return to full funding of the budget by our county, cities, and special districts. For the past 2 years, there has been substantial reliance upon using our savings from the unreserved fund balance to balance our annual budgets. And that was to cushion and reduce financial impacts to our local agencies. That particular practice is not really sustainable, financially sustainable in the long run. And we think it would be wise to return to the Commission's normal policy and practice of full funding of the budget by the local agencies. So we assume that there is no savings supplement in this proposed budget. Prior to the pandemic, we actually had a higher staffing level. We had 4.5 funded positions, and the half position was a funded clerical position, administrative support. We are not recommending a return to those higher staffing levels. But as we talked about in the prior work program item, having the flexibility to hire outside professional services on an as-needed basis is a good way, in my view, to move forward to accomplish the Commission's work program. So with that introduction, we're recommending a budget of $1,079, and that is a 4% increase as compared to the current year budget. With again maintaining our current four full-time equivalent positions, providing for a 3% COLA, providing for merit step increases based on performance. The use of outside professional services will be continued. We have listened to the Budget and Finance Committee over the last year. You have asked us to take some actions to bring some accounting technician type tasks back in-house, and we have done that. And that has resulted in a lower cost for accounting and financial services. We are not proposing any new benefits or any changes in benefits. Total expenditures for employees' salaries and benefits would increase by 3% as compared to the current year, and total expenditures for services and supplies would increase by 7%. But again, the overall budget increase would be 4% for the year. Because we are not, in terms of the revenue factors, based on an assumption of not using any supplemental revenue from the unreserved fund, it would require that the proposed cost share amount for our cities, the county, and the special district would rise significantly to reflect the full cost of supporting LAFCO. And that cost share amount is about $350,000 as compared to about $300,000 in the current year. So that increase is a 19% increase. And again, that would be spread out. Well, for the county, there's nowhere to spread it to. For our 12 cities, that would be spread over all of them. And then for our 43 independent special districts, it would be spread over all of those. So that's the largest change to the budget that we are proposing. And that particular cost share change isn't reflected if we simply talk about a 4% increase in total budget. So it's the revenue component that I really wanted to bring to your attention today, and make sure that we'll find out what you think about those assumptions before we bring this forward. So that, yes, Mike.
Well, you and I haven't spoken about this, so I hope I'm not speaking out of line here. So if I am, please feel free to elbow me. But I wanted to share some of my observations on this budget with the committee, just from my perspective in the industry and what I'm seeing locally here as well. So as I said, I haven't talked to Kate about this, but we just completed our own internal budget for our firm for 2022, and our salaries and benefits, payroll taxes, everything that we would call salaries and compensation went up almost 20%. And that is driven, it's somewhat unique to our industry because CPAs are we're such shortage of CPAs right now, but even our non-certified people, our bookkeepers, our staff, it's just so hard to find good people. And we've got to pay our people a whole lot more to keep them. And then we all know the cost of living in Monterey County. It's just crazy. And there's an incredible surge in remote work, as we all know. Probably 3 years ago, certainly before 2020, we would never have considered having employees in other states. Right now, we have about 6 or 7 employees in other states. Pennsylvania, Texas, Virginia. I'm forgetting 1 or 2, but those are all people that used to live here that have moved away. and we couldn't lose him. So we figured out a way to make it work. So that's just for context for the committee. The only other thing I wanted to add was a comment about the audit fee. I'm not sure if I've mentioned this to the committee before, but the fee that you've been paying for your audit has always been significantly below market. I'm not sure how Bianchi Casavan and Pope is doing it. I know Karen has always enjoyed working with LAFCO, and maybe there was some, a courtesy discount there, but I see that the fee went up 36%, but in the big scheme of things, that's about $5,000 or $6,000. I think the LAFCO audit is, the $20,000 to $25,000 range for an audit for LAFCO is probably the realistic fee, rather than the 14 or 15 that you've been paying before. So those are just some quick observations I had, whatever that adds to the discussion.
Thank you, Mike. I will open it up for discussion and then I'll make my comments. Who would like to go first? Chris or Ian?
I'll go. No, notwithstanding what Mike was talking about, I think we all understand that, we're hurting for employees. Employees should be treated fairly, meaning they should be paid fairly. So I don't think anybody has any problems with that. It's time for us to get back to the full budget, and the cities and the county and the district, our partner agencies should pay what it costs to operate LAFCO without us going into our supplemental revenue. And then 4% increase seems reasonable. And I was going to ask about the audit cost. That seems like a lot, but I think if Kate seems that it's comfortable, it's reasonable, I don't think anybody's going to gouge us. But that is the glaring increase. So I think I'm answering it for us. And then I'm comfortable with the budget because it's a lot of work to do. Kate is trying not to hire people when we're pushing her to maybe hire more. And to be honest, Kate, if you need more in the future, that's something we need to look at, because we have to push these documents out. We have to help our partner agencies complete their mission and do what they need to do for their districts, their cities, and of course what the county is trying to do. So I'm supportive. Seems reasonable to me.
Chris?
Yeah, I'm leaning the same direction. I think the concept of moving away from pandemic style budgets and getting back to some sort of new normal is important. And so starting to budget and let our member agencies know that that's where we're headed, as most of their budgets haven't technically recovered, but we are seeing growth in our housing markets that are increasing tax revenues for governments at the same time as a lot of liquidity is coming out of Washington for local governments as well. I think it's important that we take that stand to make sure that we are taking care of the needs of LAFCO, so that we don't find ourselves, obviously, when you fall behind a percentage or two, and we think about the concepts of compound revenue, we're going to fall further behind as we request a percentage, which is a smaller slice of the pie down the road. So I'm supportive of getting back to normal year budgeting and right sizing everything so that we can do the work we need to do to take care of our communities.
Okay, I agree totally, Mike, with the problem that we've all got finding competent employees who want to live here. I had talked to Kate before I opened the binder about a 3% increase on salaries. And she said, oh, that's where we ended up. But actually, it's 3% overall with salaries and benefits. Mike, in the CPI, wasn't it like 2.91?
For what period?
No, I think like the most recent one I saw, I thought it was like 2.91. Does that make sense?
No, that's not what we're using. I'm not sure what you're looking at.
I just saw that someplace. So I was just, if if, Kate, if you're comfortable with 2%, I actually was willing to go 3 since we held the salaries for, 2 years. And,
Can we make sure this is Marianne Leffel? Can somebody make sure that she hasn't been hacked here?
I was gonna check. I think she's been out. I think she's been out of state too long. I think she's been traveling too much. But if I could jump on that, Marianne, I completely agree with you. We just had, what is it? Talking about labor negotiations last night, and the city has lost 3 or 4 good people, 3 or 4 great people because they couldn't afford to live here. And so we're having these same discussions about how do we give them more money. I'm just
I'm
gonna
good
be
at 3
real.
as well.
Yes, I mean, I'm just,
So-
so that's my point is I see the need to make sure Kate has the people that she needs. So go ahead, Chair.
so Kate, I think what we're saying is we would like to send an attaboy to staff. I guess that's not gender neutral. But we'd like to say that we appreciate what all you've done and that you did hold the line for a couple of years. And so I think what you're hearing is a consensus on 3% on basic salaries. So sorry.
All right, I got that. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. And then,
And
Mike,
that also the cost of living then, is that right?
no, it's just
But-
that, I was just
Oh.
trying to equate it to what I was reading about how the cost of living continues to escalate. And so I don't think 2% stays in line with it. So I think 3% is a little more fair. So
Dude,
3%,
I wanted to
3%
follow
on
up.
basic salaries.
I'm sorry, Marianne. I wanted to follow up on Ian's point. The reason why we had to increase our salaries that much was exactly to that point. Headhunters and recruiters are coming after our people like crazy.
Yep.
And that was, I mean, we're a good sized firm, but we're not a national firm. We're a locally owned firm. So to increase that was a $1 million increase to our salaries, and our health insurance alone went up 20%. So all those people that moved, they moved because they got tired of the cost of living, and both spouses working, barely getting by. They can move to Texas and have one spouse stay home and take care of the children and have more of a family life. So it's a very, very difficult situation. So we were looking, Marianne, to your point, I'm not sure about the consumer price index, but we were looking at more of the inflation index. And I think those numbers are more up around 7 or 8%. So we factored that in with the cost of losing our people. And we said, we've got to bump our salaries 10, 15%. And then with the increase in healthcare costs, that's how we got up to I don't think it was quite 20. I think it was like 18 or 19%. But anyway, for what it's worth.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Anyway.
we've seen those high CPIs, and just, the risk is that the Treasury's still saying that, oh, they're transitory. Sure, but so the concern there is if there is a major dip or reaction, we'll be on the hook on long-term based contracts, at least with other agencies that I'm assisting with. And so just wanted to throw that on the table, and why I think we want to do right by our staff and employees, but we also want to be cautious of the particular economic window we're in with all the geopolitical ramifications of an invasion of Ukraine.
So we are all three. I'll just take a yes from Chris and Ian to go to 3% on the basic salaries.
Yep.
Okay, so and then help me down here on our line items. Every year we end up going in and taking money out to pay the unfunded liability. Right?
Some years.
Okay.
Some years. And for the next couple of years, or at the moment, we are fully funded as CalPERS actuarials, I think we can be. And we may be at a overfunding, slightly overfunded standpoint right now in terms of the pension liabilities. Our CalPERS actuarial believes that for the next year, we will not have an unfunded liability.
Okay,
And
well,
that it will
I
be
have to s-
very minor in the year or two after that. So we're in we as LAFCO are in an extraordinary position from the standpoint of the CalPERS actuarial folks.
Okay, so my question is this, do we need to, because we've been taking that out of reserves.
Mhm.
Do we need to put a line item where we just put even a nominal amount here, where it would then pay back into our own reserves if we get hit with that, as opposed to going forth? And this is a discussion, I'm just throwing it out there. I just get, CalPERS, as you all know, makes me crazy.
So
Any thought, or
idea-
do we let it go this year and see what happens and then address it next year if we get hit again or think we're going to get hit?
So you're suggesting something like maybe a $5,000 placeholder or something in as a line item to that would be earmarked for future retirement plan liability.
Or to replenish the unfunded liabilities that we've taken out of our reserves. We were taking, but we haven't put anything back.
Mhm.
Any discussion, or do we leave it alone since we're going for a 19% increase when we haven't given them any, our contributors?
I think we leave it alone. I think bringing us even where we're not dipping into the funding is we're stabilizing ourselves, and if we just keep current for the next 2-3 years and protect our reserves, that should be sufficient. That should be sufficient. The object is, I'm not sure, but do we have a certain amount we're supposed to have in reserves? I mean, did we set a certain amount? And, if not, that's fine. But if we did, I was just wondering how close we were to 100% funding that number.
Well, so far, I think our reserves are adequate.
The reserves that are designated for certain purposes like litigation, general contingency, by policy, there are certain funding levels and we're at those levels. So, and the unreserved fund balance, Mike, if you could please help me on this, but it's generally about now, probably by June 30th, might be about $400,000 or $500,000.
Yeah, sorry, I was on mute there. I don't want to sidetrack us too much, but if you do want to look at those numbers, they're on page 2 of, I think that's section 3 of the packet. So the equity, the fund balance as of December 31 was $1,474,000. Of that amount, it's set aside in 4 or 5 categories. Investment in capital assets, which is $10,000. That's just your equipment, not a big deal. Encumbered funds, Kate talked about that earlier, $70,000. And here's the 3 big ones. Reserve for litigation, $300,000. I'm just rounding off here. Reserve for contingency, $258,000. And then currently there's an unreserved fund balance of about $834,000. So as Kate mentioned, that's going to be eaten away for the next 4 months or 5 months until the end of the year, because we've already gotten all of our revenues up front. So it's just paying out all the expenses for March, April, May, and June. So Yeah, Kate, I think you said 400 or 500,000. I think that's about right. It might be a little bit more than that. So we're going to end the year in a very strong position. You're going to have 500, let's just say 500 is a rough estimate, 500,000 of unreserved fund balance. So that's still, that's still equity. And then you've got another 600,000 on top of that, designated for those items that I just described. So I can't recall off the top of my head the legal requirement or not the legal requirement, but the mandate that the prior committee has set up for the unreserved amount. But in my opinion, your equity is very strong compared to what I see in other agencies and organizations.
When I look at it, we've got enough to. Typically, it's like 6 months to 2 years that you need to have a reserve. I think we're good unless we get hit with some special circumstance where it just starts eating away at it. But we should be fine. I just worry about, future people coming along going, what were they thinking? They did not put that aside. So we'll monitor it this year and see what happens, and then take a look at it if we need to in the next budget year. So could I have a motion for approval with the budget as presented? Well, we're going to have to balance this out here. Oh, I know. I did have one more question in my notes to myself. When we charge people the fees for processing, given all of the increases and all of the experts needed and everybody, are we charging enough?
Commissioner, we did review our application processing fees about a year ago. Was it a year ago, Jonathan? And we substantially increased the hourly rate that is charged by our analysts. That include a little bit of my time, a little bit of legal time, etc. So I think those costs are still fine because our salaries haven't gone up. And also the applicants do pay, if there's a lot of legal time required, then they just pay those direct costs. They also pay the direct costs of outside professionals that we may need to bring in. They pay for the costs of legal notices, actual costs. So our reimbursement is good.
Okay.
I think we're fine.
Okay. That was something I made a note to myself, that in our revenue side that we're collecting enough to cover our costs as they go up, in line with what everybody's talking about.
Mhm.
So how are we going to budget? How are we going to balance this with income? What is the 3% on that? I don't have a calculator in front of me. What's another one? About what, $5,000-6,000? Anybody? Mike?
The question was what percentage of what? I missed the question. That's why I'm trying to get back to where you.
If we take the basic salaries to 3%, we're increasing that.
Well, 1% of be 5,000.
Right.
So 5,500, whatever, something like that.
Okay.
So
are you going to adjust that with the unreserved fund balance? How are we going to do that? What I'm saying is, do we want to bring a balanced budget? I believe.
Yes. Commissioners, in the salary worksheet that's attached to the budget, there is we routinely put in what we call a 1% reserve. And that's shown as about $5,700. So we've already got a 1% cushion in there.
The-
So a 3% would be closer to about $16,000. And
I got $16,252 roughly,
mhm,
right? If that sounds right to you guys. No, I think you keep your 1% cushion. Let's just take a few seconds and calculate what would 3% be.
it'd be 3% of the projected cost of $554,000.
Well, that's
No.
already 2%. It'll be 541,761.
760. So my question is, where do you get the additional $5,700 in revenue above to balance the budget?
I would propose that be distributed as costs then to the local agencies.
Okay, so it will be a little above 19%. It may take it to. It's not going to take
Hey,
it.
can I add, excuse me, can I add something there? I'm just wondering, just the fees so far this year for projects are $14,000 just for 6 months. So I'm wondering if we could just put it in the fees line item, leave the county, city independent the way they are. If that's a reasonable target, Kate, based on what we're experiencing this year so far. I don't know if there was something unusual this year, but
We've had a lot of unusual activity, Mike, this year. It's very hard to predict. There should be a lot of revenue, project fee revenue coming in next year. But
it's just something to consider to bump the project fees up from 10 to, let's say, 16, just to round it out. Another $6,000, and I think that'll solve the problem. But
I see.
think you need to make the call there, and then you keep your fees to county, city independent below 20. I guess there's something there. 19 is high enough as it is. You bump it up a little bit more. I don't know if it'll take it to 20 or not, but
so I think the idea then would be to add to the project fee revenue line item, but I think the commissioner's intent is to add closer to $15,000 or $16,000.
well,
No,
I'm-
it's not.
no,
Kate.
it's not.
No,
Oh,
we're 1% of 541,761. So what is that? $5,418. That's what we say we want to add to the proposed budget for salaries. That will add that additional 1%. So we need to look for $5,418 above. So Mike is saying, which is what I was asking earlier, do we do it with project fees or do we take it out of unreserved fund balance? And I believe the project fees is probably the cleanest place to put it, so that mentally we stay at 19% in our increase to all of our contributors, and we don't go over 19. I think that's a psychological barrier. So I think 19 is a good number to be at. And if we put it in project fees, knowing that you've got projects coming in, I think that's reasonable.
Through the chair,
Yes. Yeah.
that you and Michael worked out. That's a great idea, and it solves a lot of problems. Meaning, report doesn't change. Right? Only thing you need to change on the report is add more fees. Right? We don't need to change 19%. We don't need to change. Okay, and you're going to change the 3%. But my point is, it allows us that, Kate, if you don't get all those fees, the budget committee, we know that, yeah, you may have to dip into reserves for $3,000, for $1,500, for $800, right?
Right.
Okay.
Minor.
Otherwise, you would have to cut back other places. So,
Mhm.
you know, I think that's,
I would like just to clarify one item, please, under the proposed budget for this coming year, the employee salary line item currently is 554,000.
We understand that. We
Yeah.
understand that. But your 1% increase is not on that. Your 1% increase is on the adopted budget of this year. So
Yes,
that's to clarify for you. So we are taking, instead of 2% of 541,761, we are taking 3% of 541,761 to get the new total for the proposed budget.
Hey, Kate, I'm happy to stay on the call after the meeting if you want. We can kind of firm it up and walk through it if you feel that like that would be helpful.
yes.
I think I understand where they want to go with it. As long as everyone agrees that we're putting it to the project fees.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Good, thank you.
Good with that.
So,
yeah, Marion, did you get the total then? What I got is 558, $58,000. So we're adding about $4,000.
let's see. Sorry, as I said, I'm not doing a calculator.
Yeah,
I'm just,
but I'm, we'll let the accounts work out the exact, but it's rough about 500 and there you go. Yeah, exactly. Who's that? Who's you sharing your screen?
Just doing a screen share here of the calculation.
so did you take 3% of 541,761, Jonathan? And you
Yes.
got 558,01383.
Mhm.
Okay. That looks like that's our number.
Yeah, I think that the reason why we're off a little bit there is if you take 541,761, you multiply that by 1.02, you actually get 552,596, not 554,196. So the 2% was a rounded number to begin with, but that's the correct number right there. So it's not just simply 1% of 541,000. So it ends up being less.
Exactly. So the difference between, what is it, the 40, if through the chair, the difference between the 54169 and 558,013 should be the increase to the proposed fee schedule.
Correct.
Right. So that's only about, I don't know what it is, 4,000. Whatever.
Jonathan, can you put that number up again?
Yes.
Five 558,01383. So we'll round to 4. 558,014 minus, what was it? 554,169.
Yeah, it's 3,845 rounding the pennies. That's the increase we need, 3,845. So it's less than what we were talking about before because of that rounding percent issue that I talked about. So the proposal would be that we would increase the 6,000 account employee salaries from 554,169 to 558,014, and we'd increase our project fees account 4,000 from 10,000 to 13,844. I don't know if we want to round that to 14,000. We can plug a few dollars here or there down below to if you want round numbers on the project fees. But if the committee agrees with what I just said and followed me, then I can work it out with Kate and Jonathan. after the meeting.
Ian and Chris, are you good with that? That we increase the project fees up to $14,000 in order to give the staff a 3% increase on their line item?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, Mike and Kate and Jonathan, you're it.
Yeah, we got it. We got it.
Thank you. That's why you bring it to a committee before the full board. So could I have a recommendation to approve the budget as amended?
Okay, move.
Lopez seconds.
Okay. Hal says he's recommending it. He's sitting here. Could we have a roll call, Safarina?
Indeed, thank you. Commissioner Lopez,
Yes.
Commissioner Oglesby,
Yes.
and Chair Leffel.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, our last item is consider the 3-year financial forecast of 2022, 2023 through 2025. Information only.
Yes, thank you, commissioners. This is agenda item number 7. And it provides some assumptions as compared to the current year adopted budget, the proposed budget that we've just discussed with that minor amendment, and then brings us out a couple of years beyond that. We show basically our assumptions are for continuity in terms of expectations for revenue and expenditures, with very minor adjustments for year-to-year expenses. That no large change. I believe we assume about 5% increase in expenditure costs per year and revenue costs per year. So if you have any questions, I'd be glad to address them with Mike's help.
Well, I'll throw a concept out there. Well, it's not a new concept. We've just been spending quite a bit of time on it. But the question I think that's key to this for the committee is a 3% COLA really appropriate for projecting 3 years out into the future? You know, the inflation rate, I just looked it up before. I don't know if we're talking apples and oranges between the cost of the cost of living increase or the inflation rate, but the official inflation rate for the 12 months ending January 31 was 7.5%. And to Chris's comment, is it transitory? Who are you going to believe? I would propose it's not transitory. So the likelihood of inflation rate for 2023, 24, 25, certainly 23 and 24 is going to be, I think, up there 7 to 10%. So maybe a 3% COLA would not be a reasonable factor to use in this 3-year projection. Just a thought for the committee to consider.
I think that right away it needs to be changed because it's going to need to change where we just put salaries today, correct?
Right.
And also where we put project fees. So you could just take that to 14 and salaries to wherever we took them. But I think Mike and Willie Brown, who I didn't always agree with, but as he said one day, he was part of the big problem with pension plans getting out of control, that they gave increased pension plans to government employees because they were not tracking with private industry. And now the pension plans are killing government. So I agree with you, but I also agree that there is a rainbow out there. So I think for me, on this assumption, I would like to just see what happens for another year. And that
I'm
is
in
the
same-
old Mary Ann Leffel, Chris. I didn't completely.
Yeah, there it is. There it is. Yeah, I'm in the same boat though, given what we're seeing again, who knows what's going to happen. I'm leaning towards Mike's um, ascertainment of the situation. I don't think it's transitory, but given all the different moving factors and the fact that we live in a region where we have a large population who's not going to see that big of an increase. And specifically, I'm thinking about our main industry here, agriculture. They are not seeing increases in their commodity prices that are coming back to our region. So I think we have to remain competitive, but be honest about the fact that not everyone who lives and works here is in the professional sector. And it's going to impact our ability to see the returns and growth and percentages on tax base. I think that is going to reflect back in the coming 2 to 3 years in a different way here than it would, say, in San Jose. And so for that reason, I'm comfortable taking a slightly more cautious approach.
Agreed.
Okay. And you know what? This is, I mean, I think we have to look at ourselves more as a pay for service. And so that goes back to, are we charging enough when we take an application in, and for all of the things, are we really looking at everything that goes into that in processing it? Because that's really what our staff does, is they work with all of these groups. So if we're not charging enough for projects and things that are coming in, what I hear, Kate, over 2 years or 4 years of meeting with Soledad over and over and over, did that fee that they paid really cover everything that your staff has put into that? Probably not. So I just think we need to really be cognizant of what are our costs. I sit on the Workforce Development Board, and we talked about developing something, and then it was put on the shelf for 2 years. And I said, and what was the cost of that? And a staff member said to me, nothing. I was like, what do you cost? You worked on it for 7 months, and it costs nothing. So I just think we need to be aware of that. And every time we get another unfunded liability, that comes out of reserves, because that didn't come out of anything current. So I know with my other 2 commissioners, they get it. We just have to kind of, I think, change how we think about things and really look at pure costs. So anyway, for this, I'm good with it, as long as we just change up the salaries going across and the project fees to keep that in line, and then we'll revisit it next year.
Yeah, I agree with that. I just, Marianne, we need to firm up, how do we look at that? How do we ask Kate to quantify what the true costs are? And, we know some smaller districts can't, the so-called true cost, but that's what I was thinking about when I said about, we do these reports and then they don't have to take the advice, right? And so does it, but we're doing it on their behalf, we charge a fee, and if it doesn't cover, maybe I won't say, because again, the smaller district, may not be able to afford it, but we are a fee for service, right? And so we have to do the service for our member agencies to fulfill their mission statement, which is to provide their services, right? So we have to be there, and it's important to get reimbursed for the true cost or whatever the percentage is. But right now, I don't think we know. And so it is, how to frame that. We could discuss it 6 months. How do we frame it so we can have that answer and debate about it, commission debate about it several months from now?
Commissioners, we might want to have a future discussion about the commission's policies relating to financial recovery. Almost all of the work that we do is not a direct pay for service. Only active applications that are in our office, formal applications that we've received. Only those ones are ones where we charge and get fees and track it on a monthly basis and recover those costs. All of the advanced work that we do, we're probably talking with more than probably 20 different of our local agencies right now, including City of Salinas, City of Gonzales, City of Seaside, Marina Coast Water District, and others. All of the advanced discussions that we do, some of those discussions go on for years. There are no direct charges. We don't charge for all of the preliminary work that we do. We also do not charge our local agencies for the studies that we prepare, the municipal service reviews and the sphere of influence studies. And that's because of commission practice by policy has been that the costs that these agencies pay year in, year out go towards support of that work. So that's why people talk to us, because they don't have to, we don't turn the clock on when they call us or when we go out to meet with them. So it's been a great way of promoting, building our relationships with our communities and our governments. But so our actual cost recovery is very small, because it's only those applications that have actually come in our door, and it can take a long time to get them in the door, and then usually they just fly through because we've worked through the issues. Soledad is an exception where there's been unresolved matters, but others, then they just fly through, and that's why the project fees don't reflect very high amount of revenue, because we've worked through the issues before we've received those formal applications. So there's this whole philosophy here that maybe it's a great idea to talk about that.
Yeah, I think that would be a better discussion for perhaps the full board to have around our policies. I might be an outlier in this conversation, just the concern about going with those folks who have projects or who, in terms of the cost recovery, we're going to put ourselves in a position where the communities that are trying to do what we need most right now, which is grow, are going to bear another burden, and that burden is going to be passed on to the cost of the housing through all the different processes that happen as the city turns around and charges the developer a fee, and then the developer puts it into the cost of the housing. And I think as a region, what we're doing is really working together to make sure that we're looking at the issues we're facing and putting together policies that allow us to make sure that they run smoothly. And the process as we have it set up now, I think does that. Putting some of the additional costs like we did earlier into projects to me makes sense, but basing our overall structure on those fees, I think would put an oversized burden on those communities that are attempting to grow to stave off issues like the spread of coronavirus through impacted housing in some of our densest communities. So I think there's an equity component to the conversation that has to be considered. But overall, I'd say if it's a discussion we want to have, it'd be better to be had by the full board, given the impacts across the board.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. That's what I said from the start. That's a full board discussion. I think Kate took it a little further, so you're not the outlier. I don't think Marianne or I suggested anything like it. Was are we recovering the full cost? We don't know that. And I say again that we know some of the smaller can't pay the true costs. And I didn't suggest charging them or charging any group charging any group a so-called hourly rate, right? So I think just the concern is just the basic fees that the cities and our membership pay for the sphere of influence costs, right? It pays for your basic work, right? So we are providing services for a fee, right? That was my point. I don't want to break it down. Every time they talk to us, we need to charge them an hourly rate. It was just trying to get to how do we decide that question? How do we formulate that question? And that's, 6 months, 10 months from now, that we can decide that as a full board, but I'm not trying to change the philosophy of how we operate.
Mhm.
And I'll tell you what really brought it to me was looking at Mike McMurray still on our payroll, so to speak, 2 years after we complete a report. And I'm like, wow, this is like, it just keeps on. How long does it go? And we don't have any teeth to make anybody say, okay, this is the recommendation and you'll do it. So it's a lot of staff time. It's a lot of, in this point, it's some consultant time. So I think we just need to be aware of that and understand that this is where some of our costs are going as we work on these budgets going forward. That was my point. And I'm just still trying to understand the whole thing. As Sarah Rubin said to me, this is such a Byzantine organization. Does it really need to be here?
Mm.
So there you go.
Thanks for the color there, Mary Ann Level.
I'm defending your job, Kate.
Thank you, Marianne.
So anyway, with that, I mean, I can accept what you've got in front of us with just changing project fees and taking them, I think maybe across the line to 14 or and then or making them the increase because you're going to have to take salaries at least 1% up across the line on that. So take project fees in accordance with that. And it's not a vote, it's just a recommend or a look at, and yes, do we all agree with that?
That's fine.
All right. Thank
I'm
you
good
for
with the
your,
approach.
thank you.
Okay, Kate, do you have any announcements?
I do not. Thank you.
Well, that hopefully means we have no bad news, so. We will adjourn and we will see you on the 28th.
Good.
So,
Thanks,
Thank you,
everybody.
commissioners.
All right.
Thank you all.
Okay, thank you.
Have
And
a good weekend.
all right, Mike and Jonathan, if you could please stay on. Bye, Marianne. Thank you. Okay. Mike, I didn't really